We're very pleased to welcome at this stage R.C. Bhargav, Chairman of Maruti Suzuki. Mr. Bhargav, a pleasure to have you here on NDTV Profit today. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Manvi here in the Delhi studio.
You.
I'm sure you can predict what my first question is going to be, because that has been the question uppermost on many investor and analyst minds. And I'm going to start with the yen, what it's doing, and the impact it could potentially have on Maruti's earnings, particularly for the quarter ended June. Mr. Bhargav, your own assessment.
You know, we have been dealing with a very volatile yen for many, many years, because the yen is one currency which over the years actually has exhibited a great deal of volatility. It goes as strong as about 80 yen to the dollar, it goes up to 120 yen, and I'm not talking of the days when it was above 200 yen to the dollar. So the yen coming to 104 or something around that is not something which is a very serious matter to us now, for the reason that over the last 5 years or so we have been implementing a special program to localize the import of inner parts made by our vendors, and which constituted the largest amount of imports which were taking place in our products. And that has made substantial headway. I think the import content has come down for the parts which were then being imported from around 25-26% to around 15%. So that's one factor which has helped us. The second factor which is now going to come into play increasingly over time is partly because we are exporting cars to Japan, and that provides us with a natural hedge, and partly because the royalty on all cars from the Brezza onwards which are introduced will all be rupee denominated and therefore insulated from the yen volatility. So for all these factors, I think we are finding that the situation when the yen becomes strong today is much better than what it was, let's say, 2 years or 3 years ago.
Right. Like I said, Mr. Bhargav, I'm sure you've had to answer that question repeatedly over the years and in recent weeks as well. Just wanted to quickly touch upon the scale that you've achieved in terms of exports to Japan. Can you just give us some details on that?
No, as I said that this will be going forward. We sent out our first shipment of cars, I think end of January or beginning of February. And we have to wait for the market reaction from Japan before we decide on what our future program will be. So at this stage, there's nothing further to say except that we have started this program.
Okay. Let's talk about the product portfolio, the stars, and the more, the recent stars. One is, the exports of the Baleno, the success of the Vitara Brezza. Is it in line with company estimates when you had started off on this journey?
Actually, it's in excess of what we had estimated, and that is why we have a large waiting list both for the Baleno and the Vitara Brezza today. Our estimates of the demand were much lower than what has actually happened.
And what are you planning to do to tackle that waiting period? Because that can certainly be a deterrent, can't it?
Sure. To some extent, this year we will be ramping up the production of these two vehicles. And that will have some impact on the production of the other cars, because the total volume is restricted by our capacity and by what we can make this year. But going forward, when Gujarat comes into production early next year, we will have certainly much more capacity to meet with the demand for the Baleno and the Brezza.
Okay, if you could just shed some more light on what your tweaking is going to be, given that the production limit, of course, is fixed, and you're going to do some tweaking within the portfolio, ramp up some, cut back on some. Can you give us some more level of detail on that?
The details really are something which I don't think will make too much of a difference, but as we go along, we expect that this year we will increase the Baleno from our earlier plans by another 15,000 cars or so. And we'll do the Brezza also, because there is a certain amount of substitutability in the Brezza with another model. And so we'll increase the Brezza also by 10,000-15,000 beyond what we thought we would produce this year. So between the two, we would bring down the waiting list. I don't see the waiting list disappearing till we get the Gujarat production coming into the market.
Okay, and everything's on track as far as Gujarat production is concerned, sir?
That's right. We have actually advanced the production in Gujarat because originally it was supposed to be May 17, but I think now we will be getting cars coming in from Gujarat possibly by the beginning of February 17.
February 17, so that's a fairly significant advantage. I'm wondering how all of that translates into a volume and a revenue growth outlook for the year ended March 31st, 2017, and then of course fast forwarding to the year ended March 31st, 2018.
Well, that's built into our estimates of our growth, which will be in double digits, because we have taken into account the fact that we'll get maybe 20,000 cars or some such similar number out of the Gujarat plant this year. Otherwise, I don't think we could think of a double-digit growth in 16-17.
Sure enough. We haven't had a chance to talk to you, on the progress under GST and the moves that have been made by the government on that front. So just what is your own assessment, A, of preparedness and B, of positive impact for Maruti were it to come into play?
Well, I think all business houses, all manufacturing companies are anxiously waiting for the GST to be implemented, because we certainly hope to make our operations much more efficient in terms of the logistics of distributing our vehicles in different parts of the country, in getting components from different parts of the country, and generally in simplifying procedures, because any simplification of procedure means better productivity and lower cost. So we are anxiously waiting for it. I hope that the signs which have emerged recently about all states being now in favor of the GST will translate into the constitutional bill getting passed in the monsoon session.
Certainly, fingers crossed on that front, sir. Seems like we've spent so much time waiting for the goods and services tax to become a reality. But that question and that assessment bears repeating every time, because once it's in play, the impact is going to be huge. Mr. Bhargav, I'm changing gears a little bit here. And again, I'm sure in recent weeks you've had to fend this question, which is, the fact that Osamu Suzuki stepping down as Chief Executive Officer at Suzuki Motor Corp. You've said on record that the transition with his son sort of stepping in was to be expected and probably has been, the build-up has been there. But in real terms, in operational terms for Maruti in India, what does it mean?
It doesn't have any impact on Maruti. Mr. Osamu Suzuki will continue to be on the board of Maruti. His role in India was that a board member as well as a very senior participant in the building up of Maruti, which gave him a very special position. That position doesn't get changed if he is not CEO of the Japanese company. So we will continue to benefit from Mr. Suzuki's advice, from his presence, from his knowledge, from his general interest in India. And I don't think that the Indian operations in any way will be adversely affected by his not being the CEO of the Japanese company.
Sure, fair enough. I mean, but you know, he's always been particularly interested in the Indian market because this has been a very significantly bright spot in the Suzuki portfolio. And whenever there's a change, it brings, you know, that transition period raises question marks, doesn't it?
You know, Mr. Suzuki has always had a soft corner for India and for Maruti, right from the time he took a decision to invest in India at a time when most foreign companies were very reluctant to invest here with a government company. And sure, what you're saying is valid. In any company, when there's a very charismatic figure who's been leading the company for a long time, at some stage, he does leave the company, and when that happens, there is always a question, after so-and-so who? We had this question arising in the early 60s when Pandit Nehru was about to go. And I remember in 62, 63, there was so much written about after Nehru who. So I think that kind of thinking about Mr. Suzuki has also started. And it's inevitable, but I don't see that in the way modern companies are organized, the way they are system driven, that one man's going will make any real big difference to the working of those companies, whether it's Suzuki Japan or Maruti India, because Maruti India particularly, I don't see any impact.
Okay, point taken, Mr. Bhargav, clearly. And some of your comparisons were certainly evocative. I'm going to come back to matters in India, which have a real bearing on business. In Maruti's case, actually a positive opportunity. And yes, we're talking about diesel vehicles and growing concerns in various states about diesel vehicles. Your portfolio, of course, is well positioned in this context. But you also represent the auto industry. And therefore, you know, how do you see this shaping up? This is a delicate period where the industry has to make its position well understood. And it's an industry point of view, not just a company point of view.
Sure. You know, diesel cars have always been around. Maruti has not been a very major player in the diesel earlier. We came into it in recent times. The requirement of diesel cars worldwide is there because customers value the fact that it is more fuel efficient than petrol cars. Sure, it has been more polluting, but that problem has been addressed by the newer Euro 6 standards, which are already prevalent in most parts of the world, which will become applicable in India from 2020. And once Euro 6 comes, there is not much to choose in terms of the environmental factors between a petrol car and a diesel car. The second factor from the industry point of view is that there is also the need to meet the global warming requirements which are accepted internationally, and CO2 emission is the major cause of global warming. Diesel cars emit much lower levels of CO2 compared to petrol cars, and therefore a diesel component in the portfolio of manufacturers is required to meet the standards which have been laid down for the overall company fleet CO2 emission. The third factor which I think we should all recognize is that whether it is Maruti or whether it's Toyota or Mercedes or anybody else, all the companies have made investments
Right.
in establishing diesel engine manufacturing facilities, diesel car manufacturing facilities, strictly in accordance with the law of the land. And I find it personally hard to accept that companies which have acted according to the law should be penalized despite their not being in breach of any law. I think that goes against my understanding, at least, of what the rule of law is, because you should not be penalized if you are following the law.
Important point, and one that's been echoed by many in the sector. Predictability of the business environment. That's what it comes down to. I mean, the laws, sudden changes, and catching companies off guard. So I do want to talk a little bit about the Maruti advantage in this slightly uncertain times with, the bias against diesel vehicles. What are you doing? Are you holding back on your own diesel production, or sort of trimming or thinking about trimming? And B, what does this move towards petrol really mean for your own market share dynamics?
We can't reduce diesel production very much because, as I said, we have to meet what they call the CAFE standards, the CO2 standards going forward. And if we have a much smaller diesel portfolio, we will not meet those norms, which again are prescribed by the environmental ministries, by the way. So today everybody is focusing on one aspect of environment. Nobody is looking at the other aspects. And in looking at the aspect of pollution in Delhi, we tend to forget that it's not diesel which is the main cause of pollution. It's not diesel cars, rather, I should say, which are the main cause of pollution. The dust pollution, the PM 2.5 pollution is caused by so many other reasons, as has been brought out by reports of the IIT and others. So diesel cars are being attacked, but I think, in my view, it's really not a very logical step which the governments are taking.
Okay, Mr. Bhargav, in the months ahead, what are the key priorities for you personally in your stewardship of Maruti Suzuki?
I think going forward this year, we have to make sure that we keep our production as high as possible, because there is a demand for our products and we don't have that freedom to, let's say, be even a little bit lax in that area. We have to also take into account the fact that the Gujarat production is now almost ready to start, that the Gujarat production will ramp up in the next year or 2 years. We have to increase our sales and service network a little bit in advance of the Gujarat production to ensure that when customers start buying the larger output which we will offer in the marketplace, there is enough backup for them in terms of sales, service and spare parts. So I think we have to look at that. And of course, we have to make sure that we continue to work to make sure that all the regulatory standards which are coming up, including the new crash test from 2017 and then the 2020 Euro 6 standards, that we keep our products in line to meet those norms, because our practice has always been that we have met the norms a few months before they actually come into force.
Okay. Well, a fair bit has been read into the new management level that's been created at Maruti, and what seems to be a departure from the Japanese style of functioning, the introduction of, an executive vice president. Is it a reflection of a multi-pronged strategy that Maruti now has to take? What is that indicative of?
No, I think the Japanese people have for a long time understood that it is necessary to have more and more Indians at top level of management. That over time it cannot be a company which is managed entirely by people coming out from Japan, because not only are there limitations into the number of people who can come, but the Indian market and the Indian people and the Indian culture is not something which a person coming from Japan readily understands and absorbs in a short period of time. And therefore, unless there are Indians who are also trained and competent and experienced enough to work at senior levels, the company will run into big problems, especially as volumes grow to 2 million and 3 million cars. So this move towards having more people coming up and executive vice presidents and such things is a part of bringing up Indian management to senior posts, just as at the level of really equivalent to directors.
Mr. Bhargav, there's always such a wide range of topics one wishes to cover in a conversation with you, and today you've crisscrossed and addressed most of them. Thank you very much for joining us on NDTV Profit, and we look forward to more frequent conversations. Thank you.